Hi, this is Sean Hafer, and today in this After Effects tutorial we are going to look at some write-on techniques with a script font. We'll use the old trim paths, but we'll use the tapered stroke to make that a little bit cleaner. That has been added in After Effects 2020, and we'll also just use a couple masks to also clean up after we start doing this write-on effect. So what I'm going to do first is create a new comp, and that is, we'll call that Write On. And 1920 by 1080, 24 frames a second, that's all fine and dandy. So what I'm going to do now is add a little bit of text. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use, what is it? Let's see, a nice script font. So Turbinado Pro, that is up on the Adobe fonts area there. So you can grab that. I'm just going to make this like a red color so we can see it nice and bright. And I'm going to come in here and create a new text layer. And let's just call that, make a big S. And I'm going to come in, grab it, and let's do crank it up to somewhere, how about 700 pixels. So grab my move tool and let's just center it up a little bit. And that's what we're going to work with today. So we've got our S. So now, again, a couple ways you could possibly do this is, you know, if you made this outlines and tried to add trim paths, that would get a little crazy. You could draw a mask around it and keyframe that mask shape slowly throughout to get that sort of exact. That would be a little monotonous, a little tiring. So we're just going to create a spline in here. And inside it, then we're going to use a trim paths to draw that on. But we're going to use a little taper, the new tapered stroke feature, to get that a little closer for that crossover. And then we might need to use a mask to clean it up when we're at the very final bit. So we'll see how that is. So first off, I've got my S here. I'm going to make sure it's not selected and draw in our path of the S. So I'm going to draw this as I would write this. So I'm going to start up here. And I'm going to click and drag a little bit. Click and drag. All right, and I don't want my fill, but I do want a stroke. Let's crank that up a little so we can see it. Okay, good. And now if I come in here, let's just draw. There we go. I just clicked on that last line to start where I pick up where I left off. All right. So we've got that little guy there now, and I am going to just sort of zoom that up a little so I'm pretty tight in here. Now I'm going to come in and just clean this up a little with my pen tool still selected. Just get that a little closer. All right, and maybe these guys here. Okay. So it's not perfect, but it's getting there. Okay, so now the thing is we want to make sure this is going to end up being our sort of mask, our track mat. We're going to use it as a track mat to reveal this S. So what I'm going to do now is make sure a couple things. Let's roll down into our contents and into our shape. And I want to go to my stroke. And here we can look in and see our stroke width. And I just want to crank that up so that at the middle part here, it is wide enough to totally mask that out. So let me just line that up. And so I'm going to go up to, let's go 58. And I'm also going to select this, hit my T for opacity. Let's bring this down to like 70% so we can see where we're at. So if I go back into those stroke options, so again, contents, shape 1, roll down here to the stroke, and we look at our cap. Instead of a butt cap, we're going to go to a round cap. So we can get right to that end of that guy. All right, cool. And let's bring this one up as well. Oops, undo that. Go V for my select tool, and now I can get that in there. Okay. So at that point now I can come up and I'm just going to grab my, go over here and do an add a trim path. So add, and our old friend, the trim paths, add that in, and then we'll come in, go down to the trim paths, and we'll look at our end. So start that at 0, set a keyframe, and then we'll move forward about a second and crank that up to 100. Okay. Now if we come down here to our T, what we want to do is just make sure you've toggled your switches and modes so that you can see your track mats. So I'm going to grab my track mat and do alpha mat shape layer 1. So now as I scrub through, we can see that draws on. Now this is the part where we're hoping our tapered stroke will help us out, and if not, we'll use a couple masks if we need to clean that up. So I'm going to come in here now and let's get back to our shape layer up here. And I am going to turn off my alpha for a second just so I can see where we're at. And there we are, And make sure we turn this one back on. It's on. And this is on. Okay, great. Because remember, when you make something a track mat, After Effects automatically turns it, the layer that you're using as a track mat off, the visibility. So I just turn that back on. So now let's go into these new groovy taper options we've got. So if we come in here, we've got start length, end length. So if you just look at that, you can see how you can really taper that down if you want. So you can come in, I think around 50%, it starts to pretty smooth. And for us though, we're going to want to definitely do the end length a little. Start to feel that. Looks like that's starting to get there a little bit. But then we can also do the end width. So you could see there, getting that out. And then there's an end ease. So if we brought our width down a little more, or maybe our end length up, so you can play around with that and see what kind of effect you can get. All right, and let's try just a little bit here more on the end length. And that's getting us a little closer on that crossover area. So we'll try that and see what happens. I'm getting a little bit more here, so I might need to crank up my pixels just a hair. All right. Pull that out a little. And you can see where that can get a little crazy, so that end length. All right. So that helped a little, but you could see how that is a nicer shape, even if you were just drawing these on with a one stroke, and then you wanted to use a trim path just to create your own sort of handwritten look. All right, so now we've got this going on. Let's go back into our letter, add that alpha matte shape layer 1 again. See how that's working. Cool. So we've got a nice draw on. It's kind of boring. So let's come over here to our shape layer, hit our U key. So this is where our 2 keyframes are, right? So let's first off, let's move that in a little bit. So speed the whole thing up. We can also select both and hit our old F9 for our easy ease. Let's see how that feels. Okay. And I'm at 20 seconds here, so I'm just going to bring this up to maybe about 2 seconds so that I can keep seeing how this feels. All right. So now if we were writing this on, you might start a little slow here and then whip through that bottom part, right? So let's see if we grab these two. So we're going to grab those again. And let's go to our graph editor. And now we can look at what's going on here. So make sure you've got your selection tool. And if we look at this one here, so we could say, all right, well, what I want to do is have that maybe come in a little faster. And maybe when we want to spread that out a little bit so we get a slower start and then come in quick for our. So let's see how that feels. Yeah, all right, that feels a little better. Okay, and maybe we'll bring that up a little bit just so it's not quite so super harsh at the end. Nice. Okay, it feels a little more handwritten there. So if we look at it now, when we come from roll back, here we go. Right there you can see we've got that little extra bit that's kind of giving away the ghost of how we're doing this little trick here, right? So what I want to do is get right to before that frame. So I'm 1 frame before that happens. And then I'm going to come back into my shape layer. And what I want to do is I want to draw a little mask just right around this area. So I'm going to try and match that. So what I'm going to do is come in and I've got this selected, go to my pen tool. Now, right now by default, it's going to, since we're in a shape layer, it's going to do another shape layer. That's this little star up here. So what you need to do is just make sure you click on your Tool Creates mask right next to it. And then we can start out here. And I'm going to come in, see if I can get a little curve going. Let's see how that looks. Now what we have to do is just roll down. So we can always hit just M. Okay, that'll always pull up our masks. And then if I come down here, I can go into my mask 1, and instead of add, we want to subtract. So now I can see how that feels. So I can always double click that, drag it out. So just click on 1 point. See if we can get a nicer feel there. You really just want to try and get a tangent there. These other ones don't really matter. Okay, so that looks okay. So now what I can do is come in and let's just see how this looks. So right as that mask, so right there, we want it to still be in place. So for that, we want to roll down our mask and get to our mask path. And double click it and set that mask path. And then go forward 1 frame. Okay, so that's already shooting through there. So I'm going to double click it again and just move it out of the way. And that should set another keyframe for you. Sorry, we're in our mode there. And so now, if we can zoom out and watch this, hopefully. So it goes so fast you don't even see that just jump out of the way, but it gives us a nice smooth intersection there. So that's kind of it. Just some tips. I just wanted to show you guys how to draw, do a little write-on, couple features of those tapered strokes. This one, it saved us one mask. Usually you'd have to do 2 masks on that, so that's not too bad. And just again, going into your graph editor and sort of changing some of those tangents so that you get some nice acceleration and deceleration. All right, well, I hope that helped, and thanks for watching.